Well,
I'm in a meeting.
Sarah.
Oh, I didn't know he was supposed to be.
How's it going, Nick? How are you?
Okay, well, tell you, give me just a minute. I'll tell you, keep watching his email. Steve Stiers wants to join us.
Okay. The well, I will. Belinda Smith has got a medical appointment, cannot make it, but she's very interested. There's Mr. Hack.
Hello.
Do what? He's good?
Hello.
Oh,
Can you
okay.
hear me, Herb?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good.
Your helicopter. You gonna turn your helicopter off?
Oh, I'm setting up this temporary office up here in this bonus room, and it's warm up here for whatever the reason. I think when Charlie Cunningham built this, he built this to send his grandkids up here to get them out of the way. So now I'm out of sight with my wife.
Okay. Remember, everything's probably recorded, Hack. So watch what you say.
Oh, okay. Well, hell,
Well, Linda is not going to be able. We're waiting on hopefully John Simpson and Al Binsfield.
Looks like John just came in.
Okay.
John, are you there?
The it's been a while. This
There
is
he
our
is.
first meeting we've had in a long time of the working group. Okay, first of all, this is a January 22nd, 2 o'clock meeting of the Prospect US 42 Safety Improvement Working Group. We actually have not met for a long time. The good news is we're meeting because we have something to do. I'm going to sort of equate this process, this 16-month process. It's a little bit like going to college. We didn't really know what the future holds. We're learning some stuff. Well, now we're out of school. We still got a lot to learn, but we're not going after a degree. It's going to be work because the city of Prospect has entrusted us to lead in obtaining an innovative plan of solutions for a safer US 42. Is this Mr. Al?
Yes, it is.
Great. I tell you what, we're not going to go over the 16 months where we've been. We're going to get far, but ask Sarah to sort of just give a little brief overview of the working group. And so, Sarah, if you would, it'd be great.
Yeah, sure. So mainly this is for Hack and for Mr. Binsfield. I'm Sarah. Hack, we know each other. Al, I don't think we have had the pleasure of meeting just yet. But so everybody else has kind of joined along the way. I think the last series of people joining were kind of, I may have been one of the latter ones myself. And then to bring you guys up to speed, the first things that I think are good to highlight overall is kind of the elephant in the room about US 42, it being a federal highway run by the state. And so we're talking about putting some of our money into being able to make changes to that. So, and that was my biggest question when I first joined. And so a little bit of that is there is no money in any state or federal budget to change US 42 in any way, shape, or form to help with traffic and all of the increasing in neighborhoods out in the Oldham County line and even inside of Prospect itself. So we are not on the books for any kind of money improvements, safety or otherwise, for more than a decade. And the only money that's listed there now is derived from this grant that we've been approved. So the only way to make changes is there was an opportunity for federal money, and that Prospect would need to put up 20 cents on the dollar to be able to do that. So you can kind of take a step back and go, if we want to make changes, yes, the state and federal, that would be amazing if they could do it completely. But the only way anything will happen is if we can put up 20 cents on that. And now we get a spot at the table to determine what that action is. So it's not just the answer doesn't become a 5-lane highway or more with none of our input. So that's kind of where we're at. And that for a small amount, I think everyone here has determined, whether you all have thought about it or not, but has determined that that is a good course of action, or potentially the only course of action. And so we've gotten a $375,000 grant. With the 20% of that would be $75,000. The state puts up 10% of that piece, so $7,500, which brings Prospect's share down to $67,500, which is what the council approved on a budget amendment in January. So we are ready to go with that, and I think that kind of brings you all up to at least what you need to know in terms of overall. I didn't address exactly what it is. So this group was formed to look at a full safety look of US 42. So everything we do from here on out and what we've done before is in tandem with KIPTA, Kentuckiana Regional Develop and Planning Agency, and then KYTC, Kentucky Transportation Cabinet. So we are not in a bubble here. We're taking everyone's expertise we can, but leaning on them, and they will be integral in these pieces coming up, and they support and have wanted us to be part of these projects, but we have not been before. But do you guys have any kind of early questions about just kind of where we're at right now that I can help bring you guys up to that piece?
No.
Happy to do so.
Well, I'd like to ask a question. We started 16 months ago or more with Greg Hulsman and Herb Schulhafer and John Simpson and me. And our goal was, and still is, to get street lighting along US 42 all the way through Prospect. Greg and Herb went to KIPTA seeking a grant to get that accomplished. And I think there were something like 10 entities that applied for grants. And they gave 7 and we were number 8. We didn't get that grant. It would have been about $4 million, but we didn't get it. What we got was a grant for an engineering study for safety improvements to US 42. I just want everybody to know that my head is still very much leaning into getting that lighting that we started out trying to get 16 months ago. The rest of it remains to be seen, depending on what the engineering company that we wind up hiring tells us are the other safety improvements that can be made.
Okay, one thing I'd like to extend appreciation. This is, I said that thank Mayor Evans for supporting. Mayor Evans created this, so he's the founder. So I really, it shows me as a resident, it shows some real vision in our leadership here in Prospect. And that's the kind of community I want to. So but you can have a vision, but you got to have you got the council runs this. The mayor manages the city. The council is the real leader of our city. And so I want to thank really the whole total council. Greg, do you want to say something on that?
Yes. It's kind of complicated to state that the vote was 4-2. On the amendment were a lot of things, and a part of the amendment was this $67,500 for this study. So that was approved. So in talking with the other council members, all of the council members are very much in favor of and support advancements of Prospect. That's why we all are in our positions. We want to see Prospect be the best that it can be. So although there were some discussions about some of the elements of the amendment, as far as this particular project is concerned, I think I can safely say from my conversations with all the council members that it was unanimous that we want this study to happen, and we want it to be good. We want it not to just be come back with a lot of pretty pictures. We want something that we can get our teeth into and really make this community safer for our citizens and for those who pass through. So it was good approval from the entire council. Thank you, sir.
Great. Al, you want to just tell us a little bit about you? And I know you live in your neighbor of Don's, and heard good things about you, but maybe you could tell us some more good things about you.
You probably could better than I could. But no, I live a couple doors down from Don. And I came to Kentucky from Southern California about, going on 9 years ago. And my background is I am a civil engineer in construction, and done a lot of work with roadways and wastewater treatment facilities. And hopefully I retired out here. My daughter lived out here, so my wife and I both retired out here. And eventually John's been talking me into different things. And now we got Herb working on it. So between John and Don and Herb, they're keeping me busy.
We're doing our best to bring him out of retirement.
Well, welcome. Your expertise and would definitely be appreciated, and I think it adds. And if you folks don't know Hack Marshall, you missed out, because he is a real deal. So, Hack, you just want to say a thing or two about you?
Well, first, I've never been to jail yet. I'm a native of Louisville. I grew up in the south central part of the county, out off the Smyrna Road exit. Attended the University of Louisville, graduated from there. My professional background is basically sales. I owned Highland Memory Gardens out in Mount Washington and sold it in 1998 to Service Corporation International out of Houston, Texas. Worked with them for 7 years, and then it was on an employment agreement. That ended, and then the past 10 years, I guess I've worked in the commercial real estate field. I've lived out in this area. I lived in Green Spring for 17 years. I've lived here in Bridgepoint for 20. So I've been in the Prospect area for 37 years. So
wow.
That's as much as I can tell you.
Yep. Well, I know in talking with Hack and other persons that live in Bridgepoint, the safety of US 42 is definitely something that's a major concern when they need to get out on the main arterial, which is our main street. So, Hack, you'll be a welcome addition. Thank you. And
Thank you, Herb.
I have a question.
Yes,
The money that was in the amended budget for this project, 67.5, is there because sometime very soon, I'm going to be presented by a commitment letter on behalf of the city saying that we will pay up to that amount. When will I get that? Do you know?
Greg, you want to respond to that, please?
Yes, happy to, John. I know that is going to come real soon, but I don't have the exact date. I did reach out to KYTC this morning, and actually last week as well. They're covered up in all of the cities that requested funds. They're in Zoom meetings that are lasting full days. So I have not heard back from Larry Cheney yet. So but I know that it's very, very soon. But as soon as I find out, I'll let everybody know.
Who will it come from?
It's probably technically going to come from Tom Hall with KYTC.
All right. I just want to keep my eye out.
Not to, it's real easy with what we've learned here to go into the weeds and get off it, but I will get off weeds a little bit. At the time that we were awarded this $375,000 planning study, that was just one component of 23 that KIPTA was in the midst of awarding. Now, see, they award not just for studies; they award for the real deal, the real construction. So we learned pretty quick that the planning studies, will need to be patient. The one thing I will tell you that Greg and Sarah also is they've created a real good relationship. KIPTA, something about KIPTA has everything to gain by us creating a successful plan. And they're awarded, their job is to take federal money that they request and spend it the best way. And so they want all the projects that they have awarded to meet the goals that they've set. So and it's interesting if you get around Greg and Sarah and myself, we're not afraid to ask questions. And we've actually at times wonder if we really were our welcome. But in each case, we hear from KIPTA and Transportation Cabinet, they really appreciate our enthusiasm and interest. So I think that's going to go a long way.
Now, Herb and Greg are the two who have interfaced with KIPTA. And from what they've told me, I've been given to understand that by doing this engineering study, we have a much better chance the next time around of getting a grant, another grant, for actually accomplishing the work that this study indicates should be done. Is that correct?
Yes. We have a sample, and we, I have a relationship with in my architectural experiences with firms that provide these kind of services, and they've been helpful to inform us of how some of these studies work. And we were able to get a copy of a planning study for the Outer Loop, which I believe is just about the same amount of miles. Our project is from I-265, Snyder Freeway to Rose Island Road. But it's a little shy of 2.5 miles. So, and what we found from that study, and I really think it's a great example, is they looked at a lot of different solutions, and that they gave prices for the solutions, and then we're considered a LPA, local public agency. So the City of Prospect, is a big part of deciding what the priorities are. And along with these planning studies is at least in that case, 2 public hearing involvements. And I would say we definitely, in this process, we definitely will have 2 and maybe more. It's probably interesting. Our main street, every resident of Prospect has some involvement, whether they're going south or going east or west or north or south, however you want to say it. They're on the main road. So
I got something else I want to say.
Yeah.
As I said a few minutes ago, when we were just starting out, we had one objective, and that was to get lighting along the highway for the entire stretch that you just described. I don't know how long it will be until we find out, A, what the engineering study says about it, and B, I forget what B is, how it would take, whether the engineering study comes back and says, well, you don't need lighting, you just need this and that. That's not what we started out to do. There is an option, and I particularly want John Simpson's opinion about all of this. There's an option that we don't have right now because we want LED lights and we want a certain style of light. And at the moment, and in the past, LG&E has not offered a light that we would consider in an LED. But through Greg Hulsman, we are told that probably sometime in 2021, they will offer a light that I particularly think is acceptable. We don't have all the information yet, but I said I wanted John Simpson's opinion because he really cares about this too. And as we get more information about that, we'll share it, of course. But that is an option that we should consider. Without deciding, we should consider. For one reason, if we buy and install the lights ourselves, we obviously get a wider choice of styles, but at the same time, it's millions of dollars to do. And if LG&E does it, then it's just like every other street light in the city. We are basically renting them at an annual cost. So that's an option that we're going to be looking at and deciding about as we go through this year.
Can I comment on that just a little bit? Of course, John is exactly right. This committee, working group started out looking at lighting and it never turned its back on lighting. But at the January of a year ago meeting of the council, it was the council, some of the members who said, we really ought to be looking at everything related to safety. And it was a much broader picture than just lighting. And so the working group got back together at its very next meeting, and we all agreed that absolutely. We knew that we had deaths on the hilly, curvy section of US 42. We knew that we had a lot of deer collisions. And then we knew from later on, after meeting with KIPTA, the tremendous impact of traffic and the growing impact of traffic and all of the other things that are impacting safety along US 42. So we moved from just lighting into looking at everything that is safety related. And we felt that, of course, we should be looking at making this community as safe as it can be for our citizens and those passing through our city. So, but John's exactly right. At that time, LG&E did not have an LED option. And there's a Kelvin factor that enters into this too, which is the temperature color of the lighting. And there are safety elements to that as well. So it gets kind of complicated, but let me just suffice it to say that John's exactly right. LG&E has since come back to us, and they think that by the end of this year, and they can't give us a solid date on that or anything, but they think by the end of this year, they will have the type of lighting that we want. And so we'll have to look at that. Now, kind of alongside with that, I think it's important to point out to our new members and also the citizens who are listening in that this study will determine if lighting can be a component of something that the state might pay for down the road. There are sections of the code, and as a matter of fact, there is a I'm looking it up right now. There is a highway safety improvement program out of Frankfurt. And we think that through its initiatives, there might be some funds that will pay for the lighting through the study. So I want to be honest, going into this is a safety study. Lighting is a component of that, but we don't know right now whether or not the state or KYTC will come back and say, yes, we will pay for part of the lighting. So we don't know that. But if they don't, then as John appropriately mentioned, a backup option would be to go with lease lighting through LG&E. So I just wanted to kind of explain that that was out there. Thank you.
That's good, because I because a lot of people, well, we talked in the community, and definitely when we started was the lighting to help make Prospect a place rather than just another strip of commercial area you fly through to get home. And so it'll be interesting. I know, we've learned, you learn bits and pieces. And the one thing I do know that the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet believes in lighting, but they're mainly there for safety, but it's mainly on interstates. As you know, when you're up at the intersection of Snyder and 42, where the lighting starts way back on the Snyder. So, but we're gonna learn more. The one thing that expectations of our teammate, and that's exactly what this planning transportation firm is for them to be very innovative and to look into every aspect, including things that would make the city visually more of a place. So with that,
I just want to go on record that I will fight and bleed to get lighting on this highway one way or another before my term is up.
okay. All right. Well, I know I would enjoy driving down that lights. So good. Okay, there's two methods. Okay, as soon as the agreement gets through, and I do think, because the money, apparently the money has been appropriated to the state. So it's just a matter of the Transportation Cabinet being able to put us as a priority to get the agreement, and we will work hard to make sure they know that we're interested. But shortly after that is the next step would be our teammate. There are two methods that the state have laid out, and the one is called the statewide consultants. They have gone through, the Transportation Cabinet has gone through and made the decision that these 5 firms would work great with communities like Prospect and others. And so you can choose one of them. I mean, you can choose to go this route, and then you would take the next firm. The firm that comes up, you got a little bit of way you could delay it a little bit to get one of the firms. But basically, it's a marriage with one of the 5 firms, and they wouldn't be there unless they're good firms. But I'm going to lobby. I'll start right from the beginning. I hope we don't go that route. I understand why the state does that, because I can understand a lot of communities really it's easy for them, and they might not have the expertise of people that are willing to have the expertise and are willing to take the time to go the other route, the other method. And the other method does take time, and it can be foreign to some people. It's not foreign to me, and it might not be foreign to Al. It's very normal as you being federal money or any government money. Typically, it has to be advertised, and the only people who really can answer the request are firms that have already been pre-qualified by the state, which I don't know, is it 200? I have a list. It's 4 pages of firms. So it's that way. What happens is then a selection committee needs to be set up, an evaluation form needs to be determined. But the Transportation Cabinet works real close with the local public agency through this to make sure you're doing it legally, and you're doing it, in a per procurement code situation. But in this situation, you actually, you start off by reading the qualifications, and the qualifications tell about, the firms that are really interested will work harder to learn more what we're interested in. And they'll present their qualifications in that case. So we happen to know, just being around, you have contacts with people, and you have sources of knowing what are good firms and what are good firms if they use certain people, certain project managers. So the deal, this method would mean, well, after you go through the qualifications and you determine who you think the 3 best firms are. Now, money does not come into play. There's not. This is for qualifications, and money being what the fees would charge. You're not basing on a fee, because fees are not allowed to be brought in. But after you've, the committee has gone through and think the 3 best firms, you have personal interviews with them. Yeah, and the selection committee, which is going to be made up of us, of some, it probably won't be all 10 of us. It'll be probably the max 5. And I don't know if the Transportation Cabinet's in there, but I've heard from good sources, a local public agency can be the majority and should fight to be the majority in case it's not that way. So the decision's going to come down. And if the Transportation Cabinet thought you were really making a real poor choice, because they were a teammate also. With that, today, it might be premature, but I really like to get people's opinion on the methods, because I'd like to be feeling comfortable when John gets that when the mayor gets that agreement, and we say, okay, we want to go the method that we select. So if people are interested in fee, well, first of all, it's real surprising how close fees can be. So it's and you really want the best qualified. And I used this word early in my conversation. I'm going to use it all the way through. We want innovative solutions. Greg said another way. We don't want cookie cutter that they've sort of put together from previous. And when we interview people, we want to know things like, are you familiar with this 2.5 mile stretch of US 42? And have you been a part of creating solutions for roads like this? And what team in your firm? A lot of these firms are great big firms. They're some are even on the list on the stock exchange. So you really want to know who you would be working with. Now it comes down to if you make a decision on the firm, and later in the game they want other project managers to be in lieu of who is proposed. Well, that won't be allowed. But if you start with the statewide, I don't think you really will know what individuals you're going to be involved with. So let me let me bring that up to people who have comments, questions, comments about the two different methods. And maybe,
I wanted to jump in. I've got to leave in 10 minutes. As I said at the outset, 2:45, I've got to leave. I'd just like to throw out, does anyone have any questions that we should discuss in the next 10 minutes? Any questions at all?
I've got one question, Mayor. If we started today, come to grips with what we think's the best proposal, will you be okay with it? Which method?
Talking about the method of choosing an engineering firm?
Yes.
I think you've expressed an opinion and you know more about it than I do.
Well, we want your,
I'll leave that method of choosing up to you.
okay. Thank you. Thank you. Another smart decision on your part.
Well, you and Al. I don't want to send you off all by yourself. I want Benfield involved.
I'm not talking about me by myself. I'm talking about the working group. So, okay. Sometimes I've learned in this process, my explanation might not be that clear, and Sarah comes in and clears it up. So, Sarah, is there a need for interpretation on my discussion?
No. So it sounds like to me it's just that chat between the Louisville or the public agencies, the list of 5, they're in rotation. You go, hey, we're here, we're up. They give you next in line is X, go, or put it out to bid. You get requests for proposals. We interview and then pick a team. So I know the mayor and you had mentioned, Al, I don't want to put you on the spot. Do you have any thoughts in terms of from your construction management or civil engineer? I don't want to, and sorry, I've got you set on mute there. Well, I don't have you set on mute, but you are on mute. I don't want to put you on the spot, but just in terms of what you, if you have any thoughts. Ron?
We can't.
We can't hear you.
How's this? Any better?
Sorry, thank you.
Okay. I thought I had muted myself. I'm sorry. First of all, I work for one of these big firms, HDR Engineering. They are more than qualified. And I think that big engineering firms bring a lot to a project. They usually have the experience, they have the depth, they have the resources because they have so many people and they've done so many projects. And they're not afraid to delve into it and talk to other people within the firm to make sure they get the best team they could get. There's a lot to be said for picking a local office, though. They know what's involved. They know the area. I personally have worked on projects where the design engineer was in another state designing something. And as it came through for review, we had to tear it apart because it was just garbage. But he had no idea what he was facing by being in another state and not taking advantage of the local personnel. So that there's a lot to be said for that. Since I don't really know a lot of the engineering firms here locally, I can speak of AECOM. They're a big firm. HDR Engineering is a big firm. And from what I hear, QK4 is a fairly large firm. The other two I'm not familiar with, not at all. If Herb thinks that there are qualified firms locally that he would rather use, I think we should, at least give them a chance and take a look at them internally before we go out and ask them for a proposal.
My understanding, Herb and Al, in terms of that process is you don't, besides maybe a little bit of time, which is maybe a month and a week or somewhere in that month and a half, besides the time of putting out the request for proposals and the time to do the interview, it sounds like you're not losing anything by doing that. You may end up with one of the firms on the 5 based on an interview, or you may find that there is somebody else out there who fits that billet even better, but you don't lose anything by doing it. Is that an accurate way to
You're
put that?
saying, you're saying choose someone,
Or by interviewing, by putting it out for that request for proposal and interviewing firms, you don't lose anything by doing it that way. Is that accurate? Or
well, Herb, if I can ask you, does KYTC say we have to choose one method or the other before we actually send out the SOQ?
Yes. Yeah, we need to, that's a decision needs to be made. But Al, let me clarify something. I'm not necessarily by saying we interview requests for qualifications or proposal that it's a local firm. It can be a big firm. I mean, this, let me see. Let's see if, well, I'm used to, I mean, I've got, well, it's actually 6 pages of engineering firms that could be qualified. And I will tell you, a firm that I hope does if we decide to go that way, that's not on that top 5, is a big firm.
Who's that?
Well, I really not like to mention the firm's name, but they are a big international firm. So I'm not saying we're going to restrict, but you know, in my practice, you know, and if I was, in fact, I served the building committee for my church, and you know, firms that it was one of these advertisements, and firms I thought would be best, I informed them of the potential project, and some will find out a little bit. You know, this planning study is a pretty small thing for an engineering project. You know, so it's a little bit of finding. You know, when you put it out, you find out firms that really are interested. So I'm not saying we would strictly be dealing with the local firm by going that process. It'll be, yeah, the firms that show interest and reply to the advertisement.
Well, I pulled up a list. I'm not sure where you got yours. Mine is right off their site for traffic engineering. And I guess, like you say, it's about 4 pages long. And they do list whether they give them qualifications under roadway lighting, traffic signals, and traffic engineering. Is that the same one you have, Herb?
No, mine actually, it's produced by the state. It's pre-qualified consultants. It's in alphabetical order.
Yeah, that's what I have too, but it's under traffic engineering.
Yeah,
You have it just in general.
mine is in general because I see geotechnical companies and.
I think we have to look at, I may be wrong, but I think we have to look at traffic operations. According to KYTC, the Transportation Traffic Operations Division their goal is to improve the safety and efficiency of the highway system.
Yeah.
Through the application of control devices, okay? So it seems to me that what we're trying to do would fall under traffic operations or traffic engineering. And the list of traffic engineering has listed by approval for roadway lighting, signage, and just general traffic engineering. And I think we need to pick a firm that has full approval in all 3 of those classifications.
is there a category? See, this might not broken down in categories at all. Is it, and this is the list that was given, I got it from, is there one for planning?
No, I didn't see anything for planning.
Yeah.
Can I just, I want to say something, but I don't know how to say it. So let me start with a couple of questions and try to zero in on the point I'm trying to make. First of all, I'm really glad that Al is with us. We need his skill sets in this particular phase and going forward. So couldn't we first, or shouldn't we first, determine what the scope is? For example, I know we're looking at lighting, of course, but we're also looking at lanes and maybe no left-hand turns, maybe even roundabouts, sidewalks, multipath. There's a whole bunch of things that we have all talked about. Shouldn't we figure out what it is that we want in the scope of work and then find the right person or engineering firm to do that work? Some of them that came down from KYTC, I think the word was full. And I guess full means that they have the full breadth of all of these types of skill sets. And that's what I don't know. I'm not a construction guy, but so that was my kind of thinking is do we pick, and Al, I heard what you say about going with a large firm, makes a lot of sense, but I guess in my mind, it's conceivable that you might have this czar in highway management that might be the best guy in the world, but maybe he's with a small firm. I don't know. So do you pick the guy or the woman, or do you pick the company? And so that's one question. And should we first determine what it is that we're after and then find the engineering firm for that? I don't know. I'm asking. So that's where my mind is.
First of all, the scope of work is going to be lined out in attachment A. If any way we go, that's the scope of work. That's written down in black and white. So it covers all the aspects you talked about. You're going to be contracting, the city's going to be contracting with a firm. Now, you want to know what team members in that firm are going to be the ones actually that you're going to be working with. So I think you have a better opportunity when you go through the interview process. So.
Okay, well, could we spend the time now reaching out and without, I think you said earlier, Herb, that we couldn't do this, but why couldn't we now, before any decisions have been made, why couldn't we send out a little feeler to the companies that we are thinking that might be attractive to us and just getting them to send in, I don't know what you call it, sort of their bio on what they have done, and couldn't we do that and sort of get that information, or are we not allowed to do that?
No, I really would advise you not doing that. Greg, the firms that feel like they're interested and have the people will respond. And so there's other ones that may be on the fence, and just give a better feel about it, and you contact them, and you inform them about it being out, and just that phone call or letter of interest to see, hey, normally if it's advertised, it can't be less than 7 days. It can't be more than 21 days. So it isn't a long time period, but each of the firms has a marketing department that keeps their eyes open on. This goes through a lot of different. It's advertised in a lot of different places.
Herb, I have a question, but back to Greg's question. Who determines the scope of work?
Well,
do that, or does Kip that?
No, it's already been determined, Don.
Okay.
If you look at attachment A, that in all the stuff I sent out, it was attachment to Larry Cheney's letter. That scope of work is there. And it mentions pretty much everything that we've been working on in this period of time.
Well, back to what Al was talking about. It seems some firms there's some variation in their skill set or their specialty.
Well, I think if any of the firms going to qualify are going to be pretty good sized firms. I mean, they're going to have a lot of people. It's not a mom and pop firms. Don't, you know, I just don't see where this is what they're interested in. So,
Yeah, to my knowledge, KYTC, the District 5, Tom Hall and Larry Chainer are going to work with us the whole time. So we won't be allowed to hire anyone that wouldn't fit the bill. But it does sound like from listening, well, Herb, we all know the preference of interviewing, but it does sound like, at least from Greg's questions, Greg, correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like there's more of a preference of the interview style versus call up and go, who's next? Give me that name. That's our guy. Is that an accurate statement? At least Herb, Greg, Al, it sounded like that fit what you're saying.
Yes, you're right, Sarah. I agree with you.
I did have a question, Herb. If
Really,
route,
I'm not really sure. That's why I am so glad that we have the technical guys, Herb as an architect and Al as a civil engineer. I can see benefits to both ways. I just want to make sure we get the best engineer we can, and I don't know if that means going with the best one we can find, regardless of what size the company is, or picking a large company. I'm just not sure. So I yield to you all on that.
Well, from what Herb has said, I think what we really, correct me if I'm wrong, Herb, but I think what we really need to decide is whether we want to just choose one or two or three of what's listed, or do we want to just make our own list?
well, okay, I don't know.
I think it's actually I think it's even one step behind that. My understanding, we're picking whether you go, give me one of those, whoever's next in the queue on that list of 5, 4. I don't have it out in front of me. I think it's 5 or 5.
Yeah.
Or you go the route of opening it up to whoever, you know, says they're qualified to do it. So I think it's even one step before that.
What is typical for the number of firms you request a quote from?
First of all, it's advertised, Don. It's put out there. You don't know who's interested. I mean, who's interested in the $375,000? Now, $375,000 is a lot of money, but really, to an engineering project, that's not a lot of money. I mean, you could say, I hope we get hired, and then down the road, when the prospect makes the decision to actually implement it, they'll be familiar with us. They can use that theory, but you know, that's I think that, you know, that's a long shot.
Herb, is this project going to be advertised, or is it going to be advertised?
Oh,
or
yeah.
Will it be just selected?
No, it has to be advertised.
It has to be advertised.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I will admit that you want to know the firm I've heard really good things about, which is a major firm, is Stantec Consulting Services.
They are very good. Agreed.
Heard from people, you know, that are in this, that hopefully that there'll be a firm interested. They are not on one of the 5.
Well, Herb, you just said something really important to me. Then, if they're not one of the 5, then it seems to me we would have more flexibility if we did our own research and picked one from there. I don't think there's anything that says that we can't still go to one of the 5 or all 5 of the 5, but we can pick others. So it seems like we would have more flexibility if we went the route where we would not tie into the state contracted engineering firms, but try to make our own. So
Well, what's the purpose of picking them if they're going to advertise?
But we're see, Greg is picking them. The first
I know.
you advertise it. Okay, you inform firms when it said, "Hey, this is this is being advertised," in case they miss it. You know. Hey,
Well, define advertised. Define advertise. Are you going to put it? Are they going to put an ad in the paper or something? Or
it's through the KYTC. They're advertising.
so they're going to open up this project to every one of their qualified engineering firms.
Correct. Yes.
Then why do we pick one?
Well, this is the picking. All of a sudden, you're going to get a bunch of booklets, and this committee goes through and picks. Hey, I think 1, 2, and 3 should be interviewed.
Okay.
Then after you interview, you make a decision of the 3, and if for some reason you don't think the 3, then you throw it right back. But it's not us really picking. I guess that's not the right word. We're trying to make the best judgment after we've actually had an interview of multiple firms.
Okay, I understand that. Well, I guess what I'm getting at is what we're going to do is we're going to, who is actually going to notify all of these engineering firms that we have a project?
The
Looking
state.
for, pardon me? The state. The state will send out, an SOQ for our project to all the consultants.
Yeah.
And they'll respond with an SOQ. And then what we have to do is look at them and then determine 3 or 4 that we can interview. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. So we really don't have to do anything at this point other than prepare the SOQ.
And the transportation cabinet will help you in that also.
But it's basically the scope of work has been set up in attachment A.
Yeah, the scope of work is one item, but things, okay. What we've been, if this was another item on the list, under new items, it wasn't. We learned that University of Kentucky has what's called the Transportation Research Center.
Okay.
And they advise, and we talked to them to see if they would be advisory with us. And they've not made a decision on that. So this is so it's not just it's just another source rather than strictly the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, and they can help also. They said, they made the point when we said the word innovative. They said make sure that is written in your request for proposal. Just that that. So, which I felt that was a really good point. We definitely want something that is really well thought out, and maybe it's like, we don't know the results right now what the study will be, so we really want it to be
right,
all aspects considered.
Understand?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I guess why I'm saying that I hope at the time that we get the agreement would be the same time that the mayor is sending it back saying, hey, we want to go this method, so we can so we can get rolling. So,
Well, which method would we choose from? I'm lost again.
okay, there's just 2 methods. It's either choose one of the 5 firms that the state's already has stated you can choose, or we put out a request. We advertise for a request for qualifications.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's not
Okay.
actually choose one of the 5 firms. It's whichever firm is in the queue right now who's next on the list. That is the name you're handed. So that's the one.
So one of the 5, whoever comes up would be
Would be who you'd
PR.
get. No interviews, no nothing. That's your guy. Go on, go forth, start. And then Herb explained really well the second part, which is
Yeah.
sounds like what the consensus was is
Oh, absolutely.
advertise, have the state, well, the state does all the advertising, but advertise, do the interviews.
Absolutely. I agree with her on that. Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Herb, I did have a question. It said
Working on
something.
right.
Oh, go ahead, Don.
So what we can be working on right now is developing the SOQ.
Yeah, we could be doing that, but once we say to the state the method, if we say that, the state will say, let's sit down and let's work this out together.
Okay.
Now I did attach the state, you know, it was for the new Carter study from I-71.
Right.
You know, it's 5 pages. It gives you an idea. See, like a DBE requirement, that's something that transportation cabinet's going to tell us.
Sure.
And there's going to be, so it's, I mean, to me, I've been involved in a lot of them. So the concept I have no problem with, and knowing that the transportation cabinet wants it to be that it meets all their aspects and legal and all that aspect. So
Okay.
Yeah, I think just to keep in mind, I think for the agenda, for what you're talking about, Don, the agenda, I don't see it written on, since I think this is considered a special meeting. I don't think we put in the agenda to kind of configure anything else in terms of the specific proposals. That may be something we would have to cover at the next meeting once it was on the.
yeah, we're just
I
trying
hate
to
to be
hone in
yeah.
which way to go.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna go ahead and say this. I haven't heard anybody jump up and down and say, let's don't go the interview system, you know. So I'd like to be able to say to the mayor, this is what the working group thinks is the right way to go.
Yeah.
Consensus?
Yeah, sounds good, Herb.
Yep.
The next, I know time's moving, and I told Ron we'd only be here an hour, so it's Friday, I know. The one thing, and maybe Greg is very much an interest, is how they administrate the finances. And Greg, you wish to discuss that?
Yes. By the way, I'm taking notes and I just want to make sure I got this down correctly. So Herb, I missed something there a little bit. You said you preferred to go with the interview system?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, let's call it request,
Request
for qualification.
SOQ or whatever. Okay. That sounds good to me, too. So you want me to explain how the finances work? You mean reimbursements?
Yeah.
Okay. So once we trigger this, and so we've now determined that we're doing business with engineering firm X. And so we start to work. So let's say it's today. So a month from now, there is going to be a bill that is due. Typically firms bill on a monthly basis. So we, the city of Prospect, will receive that bill. So I don't know, let's say it's $10,000 for the first month. So we will be responsible for paying that bill, of course. But every time we get a bill, each and every month, we will submit a request for reimbursement to KYTC. And for those of you who don't know, that's the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet. And believe me, we have spent a whole lot of time talking to cities who have done this in the past because we wanted to make sure, well, how fast do they pay? And in each and every time we've said, you'll get the reimbursement in 4 to 6 weeks. So, and that's what KIPTA said, and that's what KYTC said as well. So they will reimburse us 80% of whatever that cost is. So that's how they get the 80-20. And so we just keep on going with that process until the project is finished. Is that what you meant, Herb?
Yes. Uh-huh. So I know you have a concern of keeping the finances, but a system just got to be worked out that, with the city, and You know, the mayor will be the contact with on the project, and I imagine he'll have his staff working to where the finances, you know, are all paid and understood, and it's all on this fund. So the new item would be, we're hoping that that this Kentucky Research, the Transportation Research Center, can be helpful to us, the advisor. They said they don't want to ever feel, you know, that they compete with consulting firms, and it's not, we're not asking them to compete with consulting firms, but you know, that's, you know, they're the state, you know, University of Kentucky's their research center on transportation. So if anybody knows of any other advisory, you know, they're not really going to be a member of the working group, but it's one we can call on if we have questions. So if there is no other, are there any other items?
No.
Yeah, Herb, I might know one or two people that we can engage, and I'll work with you independently. We'll call them and see how it works.
And the other thing is, if you have any questions, President Hike and Al, I mean, feel free to call me or Greg or Sarah. You know, we're just like everybody be in the know. And you know what? What's going to happen is going to be more publicity, and that's something I don't know. It's up to the mayor whether he really wants this publicized. I think it shows a lot of vision for the city of Prospect. I consider it a very you know, positive thing. So, but anyway, you know, that our neighbors are well informed of what, you know, what our goals are. So not just what our goals are, what we're doing. Yeah. So
I like that this is a public meeting and the first one that we've had that's public. And so in the future, we'll keep on doing this, making our meetings public. But we might also want to host some sort of a, I don't know, communication forum whereby the citizens can chime in and give us their ideas and suggestions and opinions. So maybe we can factor that in the not too distant future.
Yeah, and that'll also be mandated through KYTC as part of this study. I think there's 2 mandated chunks of citizen input, and then it's mandated after that too. So anything that since this is all done with the state and federal dollars, those are mandated. So Greg, you hit the nail right on the head. It's good to do, but we also have to do it. So,
and hopefully we can do the public, you know, somewhere down where they're really public, you know, the more vaccines people get. So, okay. If there's nothing further, I appreciate everybody's time and talents, and we'll keep on plugging till we got a safer US 42. So have a good weekend.
Okay.
weekend.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Ron, thank you one more time.